Assalamu alaikum. My name is Afnan Khan and I'm originally from Pakistan. Currently, I'm studying in the US, and this is my historian book review for Ramzan. Okay, so the book I have chosen is Venture of Islam by Marshall G.S. Hodgson. Okay, it's a three-volume work about the history of Islam, and it starts from very the pre-Arab era and works to basically the modern age, to his time, which is around 1950s. Okay, it's a three-volume work, and this now you'll find a lot of history books, everywhere, but the reason I'm choosing this book and the reason I'm doing this book has like particular things that this book does, which no other history book that at least in the English language that is available to you right now can do. Okay, so there are some problems with the book. First, I'm gonna quickly just tease them, and then I'm gonna go into the benefits why you must read this book. Okay, a few problems with the book are like, okay, he kind of glosses over the prophetic era, right? He gets a lot of Islamic stuff wrong. So for example, he's very impressed by Schacht and Goldziher, these guys, these Orientalists. He's not really impressed. Actually, he criticizes them, but being of that tradition, it still impacts him, and for example, his understanding of Hadith and Imam Shafi's role in Hadith and how Hadith worked. It's very much from Schacht, Goldziher, and it's not really the most precise or the most amazing understanding, right? However, so this is one thing. Another thing is, for example, his treatment of the Sahaba, the companions of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or of the Khalidun, Khulafa al-Rashidun era. Like, he glosses over it. He really starts with the Umayyad, which is another error that is like very Orientalist in leaning. Like, they start with the Umayyad era instead of really focusing on the Sahaba, right? But and the third okay, once again, the third problem would be, this is very important, the third problem I think would be is his vocab is extremely his vocab, his syntax, his diction is very, it's not very his like for a history book it's extremely difficult. It's more of a philosophy level book level vocab that he's using than a history book. History books are generally very useful, but I'll go into why that's not really a problem. Okay, so we got these very small things, and there's obviously other issues, but I think I don't need to go into details of it. But now let's get into the benefits of it. The reason why you must read this book, in my opinion, at least every English speaker, especially from America, should like definitely give this book a read, right? But even UK. The first benefit of the book that I really like, the first great thing about the book is the introduction of this book is probably one of the best introductions of any book that I've ever seen. And I'll explain, there's many things in the introduction which are extremely good. For example, his discussion on philology, etc. But the key thing I'll point out, this is one example I'll give why the introduction is so good. So he does this tripartite division, right, taxonomy division, and he says that we can divide Islamic history, we can divide things that are happening into three groups. The Islamic, which relates to things that are directly religious, things that have directly religious connotations, right? Then you have the Islamic, for example, something like Sufism, direct Sufism. Then you have the Islamic. Okay, Islamic is things that are happening in the third category, which is Islamdom, right? So you have Islamic, Islamdom. Islamdom is like Christendom. Islamdom is in our world with Darul Islam. Okay, so you have the Darul Islam, Islamdom. Then you have the Islamic. The Islamic is extremely an amazing category. This is one of the problems why when Muslims go to history, they start reading history, this is one thing they just cannot wrap their head around. They see the Muslims fighting, they see the Sahaba fighting, they see other people fighting, they see rape, murder, pillaging, and they're like, oh, what's happening? Like, they're kind of confused. This helps you navigate that problem. When you look at the whole thing that's happening, you see that everything that happens in Darul Islam, the Islamdom, is not supposed to be Islamic. It's Islamic, meaning it is happening in the area of Islam. It is in discussion with the Islamic discourse. It is either against Islam or for Islam in some way or the other. It's there, it's part of the society, but it's not directly Islamic. Okay, no one is going and like it's not that, okay, a scholar is writing a fatwa and saying go do this. Even if the scholar is writing a fatwa, there's different types of scholars that are around the area. This division is So just to demonstrate why this division is so important, Shalman Jackson is an American scholar, and he wrote a book in 2024 called The Islamic Secular. Okay, it's an interesting book. In the beginning of the book, he discusses Marshall G. S. Hudson, his tripartite taxonomy, and he says that it's problematic, and he collapses the three into one, saying all of these are Islamic, right? The problem, but I think he made a really big error writing that. The reason why he made a big error is, for example, I can go on and criticize. I can say, for example, things like ISIS is Islamic. If I quote Shalman Jackson, if I do this, ISIS is Islamic. I do not think he has, at least in his book, right? He does not have a case against me. He's in much trouble, because that's what he's doing. He's collapsing the three categories, which means every single thing happening in the Muslim world is Islamic from the get-go, which is so problematic, right? So I think he made a huge error there. He wanted to cop up the vocab of these people, take it for themselves, and create a space for vocab, but he really kind of overdid it. So this is the first great thing about the book. The second great thing about the book is the book is supposed to be, I mean, it's a history book, but it doesn't really go through like general history, like politics and all that stuff. It really goes through intellectual history very well. It is very impressive how good he is in covering intellectual history and covering ideas and really bringing them to life and discussing them, right? Just as an example of this, I would give in book 3, I believe, he discusses Allama Iqbal, right? It's not long. The discussion is like, I don't know, 5 pages. Like he does like 5-6 pages of Allama Iqbal review. It is some of the most amazing review you will ever see of Iqbal's thoughts. So for example, he gets a lot of stuff right. He gets a lot of the things in those 5-6 pages, he gets them right? He gets the fact that the Iqbalian problem of, you know, looking at the Islamic Kalam tradition, looking at the Islamic Falsafa tradition, and looking at the core problem that Iqbal was seeing, which was that it was extremely Greek in nature, right? It was taken from the Greeks, it was modified, it was increased, but it still assumed the Greek assumptions. It had the Greek ontology and epistemology. They were trying to meddle with it, but it was still really there. And that was one of the things that Iqbal is seeing and thinking, right? And he's seeing that as like a constriction, a border that does not need to be there. So this is one of the things he's really gets it right. The second thing he gets right is how Iqbal was looking at the history and the flow of history of the Muslim world, and how Iqbal was seeing this as like a space is going to open up, you know, when these big powers, when socialism or communism comes to an end, when it basically fails, when you see the West kind of start falling, right? This would be something like तेरी तहजीब अपने खंजर से अब खुदकुशी करेगी, जो शाख नाजुक पे आशियाना बनेगा, ना पायदार होगा, right? Your civilization will kill itself with its own blade. So he gets it right. Hudson looks at that, and Hudson is like, yeah, this is what he's thinking. He's like, space is gonna open up, and we need to be ready, and we need to take that space, and we need to claim our civilizational role again, right? And he also very well criticizes him, and I think it's a very interesting discussion. This is just, Iqbal is just an example. For almost every scholar, he does a really great example. Sohrawardi, all these guys, he does such a good job. And the third thing, and I think this is extremely important, is the conclusion of the book. It sounds kind of weird. It's like, oh, introduction is good and conclusion is good, but the conclusion of the book is so key. The reason why this conclusion is so important is because he goes through some of the greatest challenges that the Muslims are facing in the modern time. He really gets to the core of it, and he's really not only sympathetic to the Muslim, he's hopeful for the Muslim. And I think, you know, you study any place long enough, you kind of have an attachment to it. I think you can see that attachment of his to the Islamic kind of situation, and he's looking at this whole situation, and he's thinking, you know, how are we looking at this? So I'm just going to quote this from him, and I think this will explain, you know, what's happening. If the realities of the Islamic heritage can be frankly faced, its historical actuality, good and bad, the problems which it presents, as well as the spiritual opportunities it offers, then Islam as a heritage might conceivably prove able to serve flexibly in the modern crisis. Facing up to their history in this way might help Muslims, and possibly others as well, to overcome the cultural dislocations of our time and provide a basis for creativity in the midst of lettered mass culture. A base consistent with, but also able to transcend the democratic virtues. More generally, it might show that Islam was able to fill the modern need for moral vision. Islam was able to fill the modern need for moral vision, for the creative illumination of the human conscience in a technicalistic world. I think he just hits the bullseye there, right? If you read Wael Hallaq and his critique, and he has a line that he says, Islamism at the core of Islamism is a moral critique of modern society. And I think he really hits the nail there. And he really outlines the technicalistic issues that the Muslims are going to face, like managing the modern world, like living up to it. It's such an amazing read. Whether you agree with it, disagree with it, I disagree with a lot of it. I agree with a lot of it, but it is absolutely worth the time. So inshallah, 3 volumes, looks scary, but it's completely worth it. And this was the book review. So inshallah, see you again. Assalamu alaikum.